going to jump right in. As always, no time to waste. And today we're diving into something pretty remarkable. The story of how this ancient structure, the sanctuary, you probably know it as the Tabernacle, how that was built. It's detailed, all the nitty-gritty in Exodus 36. We've got the text right here. So we're going deep, uncovering those little details and really trying to grasp just what a massive effort, both in terms of skill and community, went into creating this central, this pivotal structure.
Absolutely. And, one of the first things that really jumps out at you when you start reading through Exodus 36 is that this wasn't just some random project they threw together.
Yeah.
There was a very clear plan, a divine blueprint, you can even say. And specific people were chosen, tapped because of their skills. We see Bezalel and Oholiab, they're named right there in the text. And it describes how they were gifted with skill and ability to know how to carry out all the work of constructing the sanctuary. It's like, it really emphasizes that to make this vision a reality, they needed those practical skills, expertise.
Yeah, so it was more than just a divine decree. It was about giving people the tools and knowledge to actually make it happen. And then Moses, right, he's the one who brings these skilled folks together. And the way it's worded is interesting. They were willing to come and do the work. And that word willing, it kind of sticks out,
Yeah.
It wasn't a forced labor situation. These people, they chose to be a part of this. It was a commitment they made.
Exactly. And that willingness, it speaks volumes, right? It suggests the sense of ownership and dedication, from within the community. It's not just blindly following orders. They were actively participating in something that they clearly valued, And that spirit, that willingness, it translated into real, tangible support. The text says the people continued to bring freewill offerings morning after morning. It's like this constant act of generosity.
It really paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? You can almost see it happening. And this wasn't just a one-time fundraising thing. It was this ongoing flow of support. And this is where it gets really fascinating, right? The people who were in charge of the construction, the skilled workers themselves, they go to Moses and say, the people are bringing more than enough for doing the work the Lord commanded to be done. Can you imagine that?
It's hard to even fathom.
The builders are like, whoa, we have too much.
Right. What's so amazing is the sheer abundance of the response. It completely flips our modern ideas about project management and resources. There was no struggle to gather enough. It was almost the opposite. This spontaneous, overflowing generosity, It tells you there's a really profound connection to the whole purpose of this sanctuary.
Yeah, you almost never hear that. You always expect shortages or budget issues, not having to turn donations away. So what happens? Moses has to actually make an announcement. No man or woman is to make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary.
Wow.
They literally had to tell people to stop giving. It says right in the text that what they already had was more than enough to do all the work. It's a pretty extraordinary level of investment from the entire community.
Absolutely. It goes so far beyond just meeting the basic needs. This level of enthusiasm, that unified sense of purpose, it's really remarkable when you think about it.
So, okay, we've got this eager workforce, this mountain of materials, and now the actual construction of the tabernacle begins. First up, the inner sanctuary. It starts with 10 curtains, and these aren't just any curtains, right? They're made of finely twisted linen and blue, purple, and scarlet yarn with cherubim woven into them by expert hands. The level of detail here is amazing. It even tells us the colors they used and mentions this intricate artwork.
It really is. These weren't just some plain coverings thrown up.
Yeah.
Using fine linen and those vibrant dyed yarns that would have taken serious resources and skill. And the cherubim, woven in there by expert hands. It suggests real artistry, symbolic meaning. These were meant to be both beautiful and spiritually significant. And then we also get the exact measurements, 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, each curtain. And okay, we know cubit is an ancient measurement, basically like the length from an adult's elbow to their middle fingertip. But even so, these dimensions give us a sense of the size, the scale of each of these panels. They were huge.
So picture these 10 individual panels. Now, they weren't just hung separately, right? They were joined together to create this larger structure. It says they made 2 sets of 5 curtains, and then these sets were connected using loops of blue material and 50 gold clasps to create one unit. So it's not 10 separate pieces, but a whole unified structure held together with, precious gold.
And that's an important point. The way they joined them, it wasn't just practical, it was intentional. Those loops and the gold clasps, they created a strong connection, but also a visually striking one. Using gold in this inner layer, it highlights the sacredness, the value associated with this innermost part of the sanctuary.
Okay, so we've got this inner layer, and then on top of that, we've got the tent covering made of 11 curtains of goat hair. And these are described as being a bit bigger than the linen curtains, 30 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Again, very precise measurements. And these were joined together too, but this time 5 in one set and 6 in the other, connected by 50 bronze clasps. So different material, different metal for the fasteners compared to the inner layer. What do you think that signifies?
That's a great question. I mean, goat hair is a lot tougher than linen, probably more water resistant too.
Yeah.
That makes sense for an outer covering that's exposed to the elements, right?
Right.
And then the bronze clasps, while still valuable, it's not as precious as gold, so maybe that reflects a different level of importance. Or maybe it was just a more practical choice for this outer layer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then on top of that, get this, there were even more layers. A covering of ram skins dyed red, and then another layer of other durable leather. So this whole layered approach really shows how much care and attention they put into protecting the inner sanctuary.
Like they're thinking of every scenario, making sure the inside was beautiful, but the outside could stand up to anything. Okay, so next, the text shifts to the upright frames, made of acacia wood. This is the structural framework of the whole tabernacle. And each frame, it had these specific dimensions. 10 cubits long and a cubit and a half wide, with 2 projections set parallel to each other. And there were a lot of them. 20 for the south side, 20 for the north side, 6 for the west end, and then 2 special corner frames.
And the way those corner pieces were joined, that's really interesting. They were double from the bottom all the way to the top and fitted into a single ring. That would have made the corners super strong and stable. Those are like the critical stress points in any structure, right?
Right.
And then think about how these frames were supported. 40 silver bases for the long sides, and then 16 for the west, with 2 bases under each frame, 1 for each of those projections we talked about. The amount of silver they used just for the foundation is incredible, It really shows how much value they placed on a solid and stable structure.
For sure. Silver wasn't just lying around, it was valuable. So using it like that, it shows just how important this foundation was. Now let's move on to the binding crossbars, also made of acacia wood. And there were 5 for each side and 5 for the west end, plus a central crossbar that ran from end to end at the middle of the frames. It sounds like those crossbars were vital for holding the whole thing together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They would have prevented the upright frames from wobbling or collapsing, provided that lateral stability. And that central crossbar running the entire length, that would have been crucial for maintaining the overall shape and integrity of the structure. And then get this, to add even more richness, and maybe protection too, it mentions that the frames and crossbars were overlaid with gold. And they used gold rings to hold the crossbars. So even the connecting elements were either made of or covered in precious materials.
Talk about attention to detail. Every little component was given this incredible level of care and investment. Finally, we get to the inner veil and the entrance curtain. The inner curtain, or just the curtain as it's called, was made of those same luxurious materials as the inner tent coverings: blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and that finely twisted linen, and again with those woven cherubim. And this was hung on 4 acacia wood posts that were overlaid with gold hooks, and 4 silver bases. It clearly marked off a very special, the holiest area inside the tabernacle.
Exactly. This veil separated the holy place from the most holy place, the inner sanctum. The use of those rich materials and the silver bases for the posts, it really emphasizes the deep significance of this division. And then, for the entrance to the tent itself, there's another curtain. They describe it as the work of an embroiderer. It was made from similar materials, but it had 5 posts with hooks, overlaid tops, and bands with gold, and this time 5 bases made of bronze. So a similar look at the entrance, but they changed the metal used for the bases.
Even the entrance, while definitely impressive, had this subtle difference in materials compared to the inner veil. It really shows a hierarchy of sacredness within the whole structure.
Right. That shift from silver to bronze for the entrance posts, it could represent a transition from that absolutely holiest space to an area that was still sacred, but more accessible. Every single detail, the materials, the measurements, the way things were joined together, it seems like it was all carefully planned and executed.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Exodus 36, a few key takeaways really stand out. The construction of the tabernacle was this huge undertaking. It involved the highly skilled work of dedicated individuals, and then this enormous outpouring of generosity from the entire community, so much so that they actually had to be told to stop giving. And then this unbelievably detailed and precise construction process, right down to the type of metal they used for the clasps.
I think what's most amazing is that moment when the builders realize there's just an abundance of materials and they ask people to stop bringing offerings. It really shows the incredible level of commitment and shared purpose that the Israelite community had for the sacred project.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about all this. The detail, the effort, the communal involvement. What do you think it all meant? What did this level of precision and participation say about the purpose, the importance of this sanctuary in the lives and beliefs of these people? And how does this kind of meticulous planning and a wholehearted involvement, how does that shape the meaning of anything we create, even in our own lives today? It's something to really think about.
It really is.
Thanks for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.